Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees, the podcast. Well, Brian Cashman making a couple more waiver wire moves. Kind of been busy with this lately, mainly bringing in whether it's defensive outfielders or some pitchers there. Kind of restructuring this roster as we're about to enter spring training just a couple weeks away to see if maybe we could find somebody, find a pearl in the oyster or a diamond in the rough, as they say there. So we'll get you caught up on these latest moves by the Yankees. As again, they have been busy with the waiver wire, and also some updates on the Yes broadcast. The Yankees bringing back a familiar face, Willie Randolph, again, the former Yankee player, former Yankee coach and manager for the Mets, coming back home to the Yankee family. Will be part of the in-studio team there at the Yes Network. So get you caught up on all that stuff. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to this podcast, Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast, wherever you get your favorite podcast. And there's also the YouTube version of the show. The show's on YouTube. So go to YouTube, look for Section 420 Talkin Yankees, and subscribe there as well. So both on the YouTube channel as well as here on the audio podcasts, and trying to keep you up to date. Some of these moves have been almost like, not even worth mentioning. But the Yankees are, bringing in a couple of interesting arms. So, I feel this is, again, worthy of at least mentioning there. I feel like the Yankees and Brian Cashman are still kind of tinkering with that bullpen. I don't think they feel 100% okay with it. You don't really feel as confident going into the 2026 season as we did the 2025 season, mainly because we thought, Luke Weaver was going to be the way Luke Weaver was during the 2024 playoffs. And, of course, Devin Williams coming there with his great resume. You kind of figured of, last season that, if the Yankees starters could at least get through 6 innings, the game was pretty much locked in by the end there, kind of going back to the old days of Mariano Rivera and Wetland, or kind of Nelson Stanton Rivera. I mean, you kind of felt, not saying, that Williams was Mariano Rivera, but you kind of really felt secure about the back end of that Yankee bullpen. Unfortunately, this was not the case. Of course, we know this Williams fell apart early on, and Luke Weaver did not have a good season, and obviously the Yankees had no interest in re-signing him once this year ends. So now you have a situation where I just feel like Brian Cashman still does not feel 100% confident in this bullpen. Maybe the guys are there could do the job right now there, but, Bednar showed us some good things. Duvall seemed like he, got it together a little late there, but you're still not sure. So you can understand why the Yankees still want to bring in some arms there. Maybe someone just pops out, sort of like how Fernando Cruz did. He always had some good stuff there, but he always had a high ERA with the Reds, and it comes to the Yankees there. They kind of straighten him out, had him work on the splitter there, and became a totally different pitcher, very reliable pitch. And Cashman probably wants to find some more guys like that, or even like Clay Holmes when they brought him in. Just this big, raw talent who could throw hard and throw a sinker there, but needed to be straightened out a little bit, and then, he at least thrived in the closer role for a while there. So you can understand why Cashman's not kind of always been tinkering with these bullpen guys. So the latest round really goes back to Michael Ciani. The Yankees picked him up off the waiver wires from the Dodgers. Now the Dodgers had to move Ciani off their roster to make room for Kyle Tucker. Now the Yankees, who had Caleb Ort on their roster, and they kind of followed the bouncing ball here, they picked him up off of Houston once they signed the Japanese pitcher Tatsui Imai. So the Yankees grabbed Ort, had Ort, dropped Ort to get Ciani, and now just as soon as he's in, he's out. That's the way a lot of these waiver moves have been. Ciani now designated for assignment by the Yankees because they made a trade with the Colorado Rockies, trading first baseman T.J. Rumsfeld. I don't think any relation to former Secretary of State Donald Rumsfeld, but trading him to the Rockies for Angel Chivelli, right-handed pitcher, 23 years old. You look at his numbers there, you're not really shocked. So maybe that's why the Yankees kind of got him on the cheap. But supposedly he's got a fastball that's clocked up about 97, 98 miles per hour there. So seems like he has some good stuff. Now his numbers, obviously, you look at part of it that he's pitching, for the Colorado Rockies. Not too many pitchers have good numbers there, so you got to keep that in mind. And also, he's 23 years old, so he's a young guy. Obviously, you have an opportunity if he has good stuff there. Maybe you could bring him to a different environment. Obviously, pitching anywhere but Colorado will lower your ERA. But last year, not that impressive. 43 games. He also had 10 games in their minor league system as well. But on the major league level, 58 2/3 innings with 43 strikeouts. So you're averaging less than a strikeout per inning, which you don't like if you're a power arm there. Had no saves, so it doesn't seem like he was a back end guy. So he was kind of maybe someone for the middle innings, or maybe 6th or 7th innings. Seemingly not the numbers of a high leverage type of guy. A record of 1-5 and an ERA of 7.06. So you're not impressed with the record. You're not impressed with the 7 ERA. Swing and miss stuff doesn't seem that great, but he's 23 years old, so you figure maybe he's got a raw talent. You could bring him into a different environment. Maybe he could flourish a little bit. Good thing about him, he's under control through the 2028 season when it becomes arbitration eligible. But even though he's arbitration eligible, you still have him on control. He's not a full free agent until the year 2031. So here's a guy, at least for the next 4 or 5 years, if let's say he becomes a really good pitcher, you have him under team control there. So that's the only upside. It's just the odds are he's going to pan out and be something special. Probably not, but Cashman at least wants to bring him in here. With spring training around the corner, see what he got. Maybe he shines, maybe he doesn't. Maybe somebody you could stuff in AAA and maybe, have him for later time. But more than likely, he'll also be designated for assignment, and who knows how long he may have suffered the same fate there. So that's an arm they bring in. And just before that, and it was kind of around the time we filmed the latest YouTube episode, and this is whatever, really wasn't worth mentioning. The Yankees also making a waiver wire move, picking up Don Hamill from the Texas Rangers. Now, he was a Met last year. He pitched in one game, pitched one inning, gave up 3 hits, but somehow he survived it. He had 0 ERA. I guess the Mets dumped him. Texas picked him up for a cup of coffee. Texas dumped him, and now the Yankees have him in their system. Not really worth a deep dive, but not really much of a track record. But both of them are right-handers, and the same thing. He's under control for quite a while. He doesn't reach arbitration until the year 2029, and he's not a free agent until the year 2032. I mean, it's just kind of scary how far we're going into the future here. So 2 young righties. Bring them in, audition them, see what they got. They could just as easily be designated for assignment by next week, as Cashman might want to tinker around and pick up someone else for a different position there. But you could just tell Cashman's not fully set on this bullpen quite yet. We kind of figured, Bednar is probably going to get the majority of the closing situations. Duvall has some closing experience as well with the Giants, so he could potentially close. Duvall so far, he wasn't overly impressive. I mean, he pitched a couple times in the playoffs and was decent, so you can't really complain there. Bednar, there's not enough of a track record. You feel fully secure with these guys. So, and again, guys always go down, guys always hurt. You always have the Ian Hamiltons of the world and the Jake Cousins of the world that Cashman brings in here, and they might be good for a while, then they get hurt, and someone has a forearm problem there. So just bring some arms into the mix and let's see how it pans out. But just as easily, this guy could be gone by next week. So that's at least with the roster players. And as for the on-air talent and studio talent, I mentioned before, Willie Randolph officially becoming part of the Yes Network team. Now he'll work in studio, so that's probably the pre and after game analysis. Again, they had a little bit of a shakeup at the Yes Network, let John Flaherty walk away after 20 years. Really, the whole idea was that, they just want to have some more cohesion with the lineup. Again, that's all the rumor you say, kind of how the Mets kind of have Ron Darling, Keith Hernandez, Gary Cohen, kind of they had 3 for every single game, and a little bit more of a cohesion, where the Yankees kind of like, sometimes there's 3 guys in the booth, sometimes there's 2 guys in the booth, and sometimes there's different faces. And I figure maybe somebody with a familiarity might just be a viewership thing. Who knows? It's like, if you see the same faces, you feel secure. You're more likely to stay on the channel, so to speak, versus, hey, there's different guys here every night. What is this, like a frat house or something? Maybe you turn the channel. I don't know. But nevertheless, the Yankees also are parting ways with a couple other on-air talent, Dave Valley, as well as Jeff Nelson, the longtime Yankee reliever for 2 stints in the Yankees there. Again, shaking it up a little bit. Maybe just want to have less faces, just so people are kind of familiar with everybody. It's like, oh, yeah, it's the same couple of faces there. And, you just feel it's a comfort level. Who knows? I mean, I don't really think it makes that big of a difference. Looks like right now Michael Kay slotted to call about 130 games, with Ryan Ruocco set to call about 15 games, and then from there they'll kind of take it. Who knows? Might just be a mishmash. So that's the episode. Yankees picking up a couple of righty arms there off the waiver wires, but don't be shocked if they're gone by next week. And of course, Willie Randolph coming back home to the Yankees. Again, was there for the late 70s Bronx Zoo Yankees. Came back to coach the Yankees as a third base coach during the Joe Torre dynasty years. Obviously got his opportunity with the Mets. Didn't end too well there. He's been bounced around baseball, and they've had him on the Yes Network various times. They're not just part of the normal staff there, so it's not like uncharted territories for him. They have brought him on various times there, so it's not all new for him. But I guess he'll be more of a steady Eddie come this 2026 season. Catch you next time.